disease which was striking cows in Great Britain. Farmers called it mad cow disease. The medical term is bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or BSE. It's a fatal disease that first broke out on this farm in England in 1985.
Scientists don't know what's causing it or where it came from, but they are worried.
The cattle are hyperexcitable. They react more strongly to light and sound and sudden movements, where they'll become more in a panic stage. They too have trouble getting up, have difficulty walking and placing their feet.
The brains of cows with BSE were riddled with tiny holes like a sponge, identical to the brain tissue of Stephen Churchill, Nina Cadwallader, and the other victims. But what caused mad cow disease? And could it have jumped species from cows to humans? A grisly clue lay thousands of miles away on an island in the Pacific Ocean. In the 1950s in New Guinea, there was an outbreak of an illness in the Foray tribe similar to CJD. Members of the tribe called it Kuru.
Kuru, in the native language of the group in New Guinea that suffered from this disease, means fright or shivering.
Kuru victims became uncoordinated, staggered, and eventually lost the ability to walk or stand. They usually died within 9 months. Scientists believe Kuru was transmitted when the tribe ate the infected brains of their dead relatives during funeral rituals.
The infectious agent is all over the body, inside, but primarily in the highest amounts in the brain. And brain was among the organs that were eaten.
The outbreak of Kuru stopped when the practice of cannibalism was halted in the 1960s. But what did cannibalism have to do with mad cow disease in Britain 3 decades later? During that time, cows in Britain were undergoing a change in diet. They had been herbivores, feeding on grass and grains. But over time, their diets were supplemented with scrap remains of slaughtered sheep and other cows. With this new diet, the cows not only turned into carnivores or meat eaters, they became cannibals, like the Foray tribe. And scientists suspect that cows were eating the remains of sheep that had a form of spongiform encephalopathy called scrapie.
Scrapie's been known for about 250 years in the world. Then it got the name from them rubbing. They think that they're itching, that they have itch sensations, and so they rub along fence or fixed objects.
The theory goes that after cows ate the scrapie-infected sheep, they developed their own form of spongiform encephalopathy called BSE, or mad cow disease, and this was passed on over time as more infected sheep and cow remains were fed back to cows.
So you had this recycling of cattle carcasses as well as the scrapie-infected sheep carcasses, which amplified the amount of infectivity, and the epidemic took off.
The British government outlawed the practice of feeding most sheep and cow remains to cows in 1988, but not before millions of pounds of contaminated meat had entered the food chain. If this infection jumped species once again, from cows to humans, scientists feared the country would be on the brink of a new and terrifying plague. By 1997, there were 21 confirmed cases of new variant CJD in young people throughout Britain. Scientists wondered whether meat from cows infected with mad cow disease killed Stephen Churchill, Nina Cadwallader, and the other 19 cases. Had this form of spongiform encephalopathy in essence jumped species from sheep to cows and from cows to humans? There exists a biological species barrier which makes it difficult for a disease to jump species, but large amounts of an infectious agent can overcome that species barrier.
The amount of infection that is needed to produce a disease when you cross species is much greater than the amount that you need when you transmit within a species.
One clue that this was a possibility came in the 1980s when cats and some other zoo animals in Britain developed spongiform encephalopathy, presumably from eating pet food made from infected cow parts.
This seemed to be another example of BSE crossing the species and going into another type of mammal. Obviously, cat's not the same as a human, but if it can go from cow to cat, why not from cow to human?
But what was the infectious agent causing these diseases? Scrapie in sheep, mad cow disease, Kuru and CJD in humans. All are what are called prion diseases. Prions are proteins which exist in the brain. One theory is that rogue or damaged prions from the brains of infected cows make their way into a human's brain after ingesting contaminated meat, where they come into contact with healthy prions. These rogue prions then damage the healthy prions, causing the holes and sponge-like appearance in the brains of victims of new variant CJD. But this is just a theory. If it's correct, it explains why cooking does not eliminate the problem. Prions are virtually indestructible and remain in contaminated meat even after it's been cooked in high temperatures. Not even radiation can kill them. But not all medical researchers agree. Some think it may be a virus or something similar.
If it is any type of virus, it's for sure different from any other virus that we know about. People have looked for viruses, nucleic acid, for many, many years, and none has ever been demonstrated.
To see if mad cow disease could jump species, Dr. Maura Bruce conducted an experiment. She took 2 groups of mice and injected the first group with brain tissue from victims of new variant CJD. The second group was infected with tissue taken directly from cows with BSE, or mad cow disease. After death, the tissue in their brains were analyzed.
We saw a very similar pattern of disease in these mice to the one that we'd previously seen in mice infected with BSE from cattle. The demonstration that the same strain of agent was involved in new variant CJD and BSE strengthened the link between the two.
The likelihood of a link between mad cow disease and new variant CJD in humans was finally established.
Clearly it was very disturbing, and if that were the case, it was quite likely that there would be more cases of this type of CJD linked to BSE, and that might have major public health consequences. So clearly this was a very, very serious issue.
But the question remained, how many others who ate contaminated meat in England were going to die? The Churchills learned the truth about what killed their son in an unfortunate way. They were watching a television broadcast from the House of Commons as a British health official announced to the world that their son had died from eating contaminated meat.
The committee have concluded that the most likely explanation at present is that these cases are linked to exposure to BSE before the introduction of the specified bovine offal ban in 1989.
Will the Secretary of State admit that it is his government's reckless disregard for public health and their dogma of deregulation which has swept us into this crisis?
The world just exploded. But for us, the world had exploded in a different way, because we were hearing publicly on TV, in our Houses of Parliament, facts about our own son's death, and we'd never been told. I mean, it was a disgraceful way to learn such personal information.
The victims' parents couldn't help but wonder whether they too were at risk.